Superstar couple Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones are spending some time apart, but they are reportedly taking a break after going through some pretty tough times.
Catherine Zeta-Jones is not just a movie star. She is cinematic royalty, a timeless force of beauty and fire burning brightly through Hollywood's darkest storms. From a very first glance, the world was spellbound by her vintage elegance, regal poise, and a presence so vivid it set every frame ablaze. She ignited the screen in Chicago, redefining strength and allure as Velma Kelly, a role that seared her image into the memory of a generation. Not with applause alone, but with sheer reverence. We remember the scarlet lips, the razor-sharp moves, the thunder in her eyes. But few ever saw the woman behind the lights, the one who bled in silence, smiled through chaos, and still breathes with wounds that never truly healed. Behind the velvet curtain lived a soul quietly collapsing, a mother at war with invisible demons, a legend suffocating beneath the very light that once crowned her. What you are about to witness is not a tale of stardom, but a raw, haunting journey through pain, love, and survival against the odds. If Catherine ever stirred your heart, leave a like below, a silent standing ovation for the woman who never stopped shining through the storm. Few knew that the first fight of her life didn't happen on stage, but on an operating table. There is a scar just beneath Catherine Zeta-Jones' chin, faint and almost hidden beneath years of red carpet glamour. Yet it holds a story more painful than most of Hollywood will ever know. Long before the camera flashes in Oscar gold, she was just a little girl in Swansea, Wales, gasping for air, her tiny throat sliced open to keep her alive. She was only a toddler when severe viral infection nearly claimed her life. Her breathing had grown shallow, desperate. Fading, doctor performed an emergency tracheotomy, leaving behind not just a scar, but mark of survival, the first wound in a life that would be filled with silent battles. That scar never truly disappeared. It only learned to hide beneath makeup, beneath grace, beneath the dazzling persona the world came to adore. Catherine was born on September 25, 1969, into a working-class family. Her father ran a humble bakery. Her mother stitched clothes with care and quiet resilience. Life was modest, simple clothes, narrow streets, early mornings. But even in the stillness, Catherine moved with something more. She danced through the living room as if the walls were wings, sang with a voice that didn't ask for permission. Her parents noticed, nurtured, and when fate knocked, they opened the door. In a miraculous twist of destiny, the family won £100,000 in a national lottery, an unthinkable fortune for their means. But instead of splurging, they moved to a better neighborhood, bought a pastry shop, and invested in Catherine's future. Dance lessons, stage coaching, voice training. Her father would later say in an interview, "She had that fire from the start. We just gave it air." By 4, Catherine was performing in local church halls. By 11, she played Annie on stage. At 13, she lit up the West End in Bugsy Malone. But with every step into the spotlight, she left another piece of childhood behind. No carefree afternoons, no room for mistakes, just endless rehearsals, long commutes, and the pressure to never falter. In 1983, at age 14, she auditioned for the national tour of the Pajama Game, directed by Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees. She didn't just land the role. She stole it, moved to London, rehearsed like a veteran, and the following year, at just 15, made a decision few adults could even fathom. She left school to pursue acting full-time. It was a tragic kind of bravery, beautiful but brutal. While other girls her age were writing in diaries, Catherine was learning to survive rooms full of adults, critics, and closed doors. Years later, she would reflect, "People think I was fearless, but I was just trying to keep up. There was no plan B." And through it all, the scar remained, quiet, invisible, but pulsing, a reminder that her very first breath was a fight. Her childhood was carved by fate, sharpened by pain, but carried with grace. It was a childhood that never truly ended, because Catherine never had the chance to simply be a child. Her path into the arts was not paved with fame, but with sacrifice and a singular obsession that burned brighter than fear. After surviving the trauma of her early years, fate handed her family an unlikely lifeline in the form of that lottery win. For most, it would have meant comfort. For the Zeta-Jones household, it meant transformation. They bought a pastry shop, moved to a better neighborhood, and most importantly, used the money to nurture Catherine's artistic gift. By 4, she was already dancing and singing in church halls. By 11, starring in musicals like Annie. By 13, captivating audiences in Bugsy Malone. Each stage was a battlefield, each applause a reminder that she belonged to this world of light and illusion. But nothing compared to what she chose at 15. Offered a starring role in the West End production The Pajama Game, Catherine stood at a crossroads. Most 15-year-olds worried about grades. She faced a decision that could shatter her future. Walk away, return to class and play it safe, or drop out of school entirely and gamble everything on a life in performance. She chose the latter, not out of recklessness, but because, in her words, there was no plan B. It was a decision that would terrify most parents and devastate most futures. But Catherine had already lived more life than most her age. For her, this was a rebellion. It was surrender to purpose. Yet Hollywood would prove far less welcoming. In 1990, she landed her first film role in the French production 101 Nights, playing a cinematic Scheherazade. She had dreamed of magic, but what followed was humiliation. The film flopped miserably both commercially and critically, selling under 740 tickets in France, grossing less than $254,000, and landing in 78th place at the box office. It was not just a failure, it was a warning. Catherine had barely stepped onto the silver screen before being shoved out of frame. The dream, so vivid and intoxicating, suddenly cracked. But rather than retreat in shame, she returned home, not defeated, but refocused. Back in England, she rebuilt from the ground up, landing the role of Mariette in the beloved series The Darling Buds of May, 1991 to 1993, a show that would make her a household name in the UK. The critics adored her. Audiences embraced her, and slowly, piece by piece, Catherine began to prove that even those who stumble in their first act can still earn a standing ovation. She didn't choose the easy path. She chose the one lit only by faith, and that faith, tested, battered, nearly broken, was just beginning to reveal its worth. By the time she arrived in America, her resume sparkled with promise, but Hollywood didn't care. To casting agents, she was just another pretty face with a British accent, a television darling from across the Atlantic who didn't quite belong on the silver screen. She took whatever role she could find: Christopher Columbus, The Discovery, 1992, Splitting Heirs, 1993, The Phantom, 1996, each meant to be a stepping stone, but instead becoming reminders that her dream was slipping further away. The reviews were cold, the phone calls never came, and every audition seemed to carry that silent judgment whispering, "Not quite enough." It was a bruising time. She later admitted, "I started to think maybe they were right. Maybe I didn't have what it took." Each rejection cut deeper, not because she feared hard work, but because for the first time, effort didn't equal results. She watched others soar while she lingered on the sidelines, clinging to a belief that her time would come. It is heartbreaking to imagine a woman who had conquered West End stages and charmed millions in the UK now doubting every move, every glance, every word. Then, in a moment that felt almost scripted by fate, Steven Spielberg saw her. Some say in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, others in the 1996 miniseries Titanic. Whatever it was, something about her presence lingered with him, and that was enough. One phone call, one belief in her potential, and everything changed. Suddenly, doors opened, scripts arrived, and in 1998 she landed the role that would immortalize her, Elena Montero in The Mask of Zorro. Yet, even that victory wasn't handed to her. She faced fierce competition from names like Penelope Cruz, Shakira, and Isabella Scorupco, all more familiar to American audiences. Catherine had to fight for the role, train for it, and earn it in every sense: sword fighting, horseback riding, dialect coaching. She fell off horses, bruised her ribs, and bloodied her hands in rehearsal. But she never complained. "I wanted to earn it," she said later. "Not just be pretty in a dress, but hold my own next to Antonio Banderas." She refused a stunt double for her fight scenes, so every slash, dodge, and flamenco-infused spin of Elena's skirt was hers. The result was a global box office smash. Over $250 million on a $95 million budget. Overnight, Catherine Zeta-Jones was no longer overlooked. She was Hollywood's newest symbol of timeless allure, poised between classic sophistication and modern magnetism. But even as her image graced magazines, talk shows, and red carpets, she admitted, "I was terrified I'd wake up and it'd be gone." She didn't slow down. In 1999, she starred in Entrapment alongside Sean Connery, delivering the unforgettable scene of weaving through laser beams in a skin-tight black suit, an image etched into pop culture. The following year, she shed glamour in Traffic, 2000, playing a drug lord's conflicted wife with such raw intensity it earned her a SAG Award and Golden Globe nomination. Then came 2002, when she became Velma Kelly in Chicago. Pregnant with her daughter, Catherine danced, sang, and stole every frame of the film that went on to win Best Picture at the Oscars. 10 days before giving birth, she accepted her own Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Standing radiant, gold in hand and child within, "I carried more than a child that night," she said later. "I carried every role, every rejection, every bit of doubt that ever haunted me, and I let it all go." In the glitz and glow of Hollywood, few love stories drew as much fascination as hers with Michael Douglas. On the surface, it was a fairy tale. 2 Academy Award-winning stars, worlds apart in age and origin, drawn together by something inexplicable. Yet what began as a glamorous romance soon became one of the most emotionally complex and fiercely tested unions in Hollywood. A bond forged not just in love, but also in loneliness, fear, and sacrifice. Before Douglas, Catherine had known both love and heartbreak. Her first serious relationship with British TV presenter John Leslie started with promise, but soured under his jealousy and controlling outbursts, leaving her feeling stifled and small. She ended it quietly, but not without scars. Later, she fell for Scottish actor Angus McFadden, known for his role in Braveheart. Their connection was instant, their engagement in the mid-1990s, suggesting a future together. But just before the wedding, the relationship crumbled. The breakup was never made public, perhaps because Catherine herself could never fully explain it. "Some loves burn bright but fast," she would later reflect. "Others you carry like a shadow for the rest of your life." Then, in 1998 at the Deauville Film Festival in France, destiny came calling. Michael Douglas was already a legend, a 2-time Oscar winner, Hollywood royalty with decade of acclaim behind him. Catherine, radiant and rising, was fresh off her breakthrough in The Mask of Zorro, just 28 and glow with the promise of stardom. He was 53, a weathered icon whose fame spanned generations. The 25-year gap between them was more than an age. It was a world apart. Their paths crossed like the final pages of 2 separate novels, suddenly merging into one. Introduced by mutual friends, they discovered they shared the same birthday, September 25th. But when Michael approached her and boldly declared, "You're going to be the mother of my children," Catherine was stunned, and not in a good way. To her, it sounded arrogant, rehearsed, like a line delivered too often. She smiled politely, excused herself, and assumed she would never see him again. She was wrong. Within days, a bouquet of roses arrived on the set of Entrapment in Scotland, attached to a handwritten apology from Michael, both playful and sincere. That gesture opened a door. Phone calls followed, at first brief, then stretching into hours. For 9 months, they talked across time zones about life, childhood, family, and fears. Catherine had never imagined falling for a man 25 years her senior, but slowly she stopped seeing Michael as an icon and began seeing him as the one person who truly listened. On New Year's Eve 1999, both sick with the flu and wrapped in blankets and aspen, Michael pulled out a vintage 10-carat diamond ring. Amid the sneezing and tissues, Catherine said yes without hesitation. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. When they discovered she was pregnant shortly after, their joy doubled. On November 18, 2000, in a lavish $1.5 million ceremony at the Plaza Hotel in New York, Catherine Zeta-Jones married Michael Douglas. She wore a custom Christian LaCroix gown. He wore a proud, nervous smile. Their newborn son, Dylan, just 3 months old, was cradled in Michael's arms as Hollywood royalty looked on. Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, Jennifer Aniston, Sharon Stone. But beneath the grandeur lay something intimate, a woman who had fought long and hard to believe in love again. The wedding, however, was marred by intrusion. Despite selling exclusive rights to OK Magazine for $1 million, Hello Magazine photographers stole unauthorized shots. Catherine and Michael sued, but years of court battles ended in a ruling that dismissed the invasion as insignificant harm. For Catherine, the damage was deeper. Her dream wedding had been trespassed upon. It was her first taste of the heavy price of celebrity marriage. Motherhood soon transformed her. Dylan arrived in 2000, Karis in 2003, and to shield him from Hollywood's relentless glare, she and Michael moved Bermuda, where his family had ties. For 6 years they lived quietly, raising children away from red carpets. Catherine later said, "It was the first time in my life I didn't hear the word action for months, and I loved it." Yet even in paradise, shadows loomed. She was balancing career, children, and a marriage under constant scrutiny. Whispers followed. Was it real? Would it last? Was she too young, too ambitious, too visible? And in her private moments, Catherine sometimes wondered too. There were nights, she admitted years later, where I'd look at Michael sleeping and think, am I enough for this life? Is he enough for me? Yet through doubts, scandals, and storms, Catherine clung to something fierce and unshakable, belief, not just in Michael, but in herself, in the quiet power of choosing to stay when walking away might have been easier. Love is not about perfection, she once said. It's about endurance and forgiveness, and waking up the next day still choosing each other. For Catherine, the real wedding wasn't the Plaza Hotel. It was every morning after, every headline endured, every sacrifice made in silence. Her love story wasn't picture perfect, but it was real. And for a girl from Swansea who once had nothing but a stage and a scar, that was enough. Yet stardom is easy to romanticize, red carpets, gowns, applause. But when the curtains fall, the person behind the spotlight must wrestle with demons unseen. For Catherine Zeta-Jones, the years after her Hollywood coronation brought not peace, but a slow unraveling. After Karis's birth in 2003, she and Michael seemed to find refuge in Bermuda, away from the cameras. But within that idyllic retreat, a storm brewed. Catherine began suffering mood swings, exhaustion, and emotional paralysis no ocean breeze could heal. For years, she struggled in silence, painting on perfection for the world while privately buckling. I had to smile at premieres while I was falling apart inside, she confessed. The diagnosis came like quiet thunder. Bipolar II disorder, marked by severe depression and hypomanic episodes. At first, she told no one. The stigma in Hollywood was suffocating. She feared judgment, gossip, pity. So she endured, mothered, acted, posed, everything she was expected to be, while secretly battling everything she could not control. She was supposed to be everything except herself. Her husband, too, was fighting private battles. In 2009, Michael's eldest son, Cameron, from a previous relationship, was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for drug offenses. The media fed on the story like vultures. Catherine, already fragile, now found herself consoling a devastated husband while shielding her own children from headlines that threatened to swallow them. Then came another blow. In 2010, Michael was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer, a diagnosis that shook their world. Catherine, barely holding herself together, walked cold hospital corridors, holding Michael's hand as he endured brutal chemotherapy. She sat by his bedside, watching a man who once lit up every room now shiver under thin blankets, too weak to speak, too proud to cry. And then, as if illness wasn't enough, another storm erupted. During a candid interview, Michael linked his cancer to HPV, a sexually transmitted virus. Though scientifically possible, the media twisted his words, sensationalizing the story and dragging Catherine into a storm she never invited. Headlines shifted from survival to cruel speculation, and whispers cut sharper than scalpels. Friends said she felt betrayed and humiliated, as though her last shred of privacy had been auctioned off. The man who had once seemed invincible was now frail, and though Catherine stood by him through every treatment, privately she unraveled. By 2011, the weight became unbearable, and she quietly checked herself into a mental health facility in Connecticut, When the news leaked, Catherine made a choice. She came forward. This is a disorder that affects millions. I'm not ashamed. Mental health is not something to hide, she told the press. In that moment, her courage became not just personal but universal, shattering stigma in Hollywood and inspiring thousands to write to her, thanking her for making it okay to not be okay. Still, pain lingered. The public speculated about her marriage. And in 2013, Catherine and Michael announced they were taking time apart. The press exploded, but behind closed doors, there was no scandal, only exhaustion. We needed space to heal, she said. For a year, they lived apart, then quietly chose each other again. It wasn't about grand gestures, but survival, rebuilding not just a marriage, but themselves. Catherine emerged not only as an actress, but as a woman reborn. Her eyes carry more shadows, but also more fire. She spoke openly about mental health, asking, "We talked about cancer openly. We talked about heart disease. Why not mental illness?" Her honesty turned whispers into conversations and shame into strength. Though bipolar disorder never vanished, she no longer hid. Perhaps that was her true legacy, a woman who staggered beneath the storm and stood up anyway. Proving the bravest thing one can do is admit they're hurting and still choose to heal. In 2013, the cracks showed again when Catherine and Michael separated. Tabloids screamed of infidelity and betrayal, but the truth was silence. 8 months of brutal nights filled with doubt, fear, and longing. "You don't stop loving someone just because you're hurting," she once admitted. And so, after soul-searching, they chose love again quietly. No press, no drama. Just two hands reaching in the dark. By 2017, tides shifted. Cameron was released from prison and soon became a father, sparking healing in a family once defined by fracture. For Catherine, who had endured years of shame, it felt like hope's return. Then, in 2018, another storm struck. Michael faced allegations of sexual misconduct. Catherine, blindsided, stood by him publicly but was heartbroken privately. At 49, she admitted, "I didn't sign up for perfect. I signed up for love, and love means you stand still in the chaos." The investigation went nowhere, but the scars lingered. Yet through it all, Catherine's story became less about perfection and more about resilience, a testament that love, endurance, and vulnerability can survive even the harshest spotlight. They endured, and by 2020, their home shifted again. With Dylan and Karis leaving for college, Catherine entered what she called her third act. At 51, she looked into a mirror no longer defined by movie roles or red carpets, but by a quieter kind of endurance. The house was calmer, mornings slower, conversations deeper. She and Michael traveled together, cooked together, and spoke not of premieres or scripts but of memories, futures, and the simple joy of being. A friend once recalled seeing them barefoot in their living room, dancing to an old jazz record. "It wasn't glamorous," she said. "It was peace." In a rare interview that year, Catherine reflected, "I've been many things, daughter, wife, mother, star. But these days, I just want to be still. I want to be whole." For her, peace wasn't the absence of storms, but the grace to keep dancing through them, hand in hand. There's a certain grace only time reveals, and as Catherine Zeta-Jones entered this later chapter of her life, she didn't walk into it quietly. She glided, sculpted not by spotlight, but by storm survived. Today, she splits her time between their $33 million villa in Mallorca, Spain, surrounded by olive trees and ancient stonework, and a Manhattan apartment overlooking Central Park. The Spanish estate, she says, makes her feel closer to the earth and to herself. Though the headlines have dimmed, her presence has not. At 54, she stunned audiences as Morticia Addams in Netflix's Wednesday, proving that reinvention isn't just possible, it's her forte. She isn't everywhere, on every stage or at every award show, but when she appears, the world looks up. In 2021, a photo of her with daughter Karis went viral, the resemblance so striking it felt like a time mirror, not just beauty passed down but legacy. Beyond acting, Catherine has built a second empire with her lifestyle brand Casa Zeta-Jones. Home decor, bedding, cosmetics, fashion, an extension of her timeless eye. Endorsements and ventures have earned her over $20 million. with personal net worth estimated at $150 million. In 2010, she was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, for her contribution to drama, a moment she described as humbling. Yet Catherine has never measured her worth in medals or money. A beautiful home is only beautiful if it holds peace, she once told a Design magazine. That pursuit of peace shapes everything. Her marriage, once near collapse, now steadier, lived with more space. Sometimes emotional, sometimes literal. Sometimes both partners need their own sky to see the same stars, she mused. They visit often, speak daily, and still call each other home. As a mother, she beams with pride watching Dylan and Karis chart their own paths, often sharing glimpses of quiet family dinners, board games, and mornings filled with coffee and jazz. Yet peace came at a cost. Her battle with bipolar II disorder, first revealed in 2011, still lingers like a shadow. She maintains a wellness routine of yoga, meditation, and a macrobiotic diet. It's not about chasing youth, she said at 50. It's about honoring survival. Her glow comes not from surgery, but from self-respect. Even now, she refuses to let fear guide her. She's begun structuring her estate, with whispers of trust funds and legacy plans for family and for young Welsh actors through scholarships. Wasting time, she admits, is the only thing that scares me now. Old wounds, the whispers around her marriage, the breakdowns, the stigma, remain, but she carries them like a seasoned dancer, strong spine, soft eyes. She has long since stopped trying to prove herself. Now she seeks only presence, purpose, and peace. Perhaps the most powerful image of her isn't from a movie, but a paparazzi shot. Catherine on a balcony, barefoot, wrapped in a linen robe, sipping coffee as sunlight brushes her cheek. No makeup, no pose, just a woman who has learned how to live. From a lottery ticket in Swansea to the golden lights of Oscar night, her story is not one of luck, but a relentless effort and quiet defiance. She was never just a beautiful face. She was a girl who fought for breath, the teenager who left school to chase a dream, the woman who broke down in silence but stood tall in public. Life gave her a stage, but she built a performance with pain, persistence, and power. At 55, she still carries invisible wounds. There are mornings, she admits, when the fog of bipolar disorder returns, when the shadows of depression press close. It doesn't go away, she confided. You learn to live with it, manage it, but some mornings it still hurts to get out of bed. Still she rises, still she gives, still she shines. Catherine Zeta-Jones stands not only as a Hollywood icon, but as a beacon of resilience for all navigating their own quiet storms. Her journey reminds us that behind every dazzling smile may lie a hidden battle, and that healing isn't linear, but it is possible. We honor her not for perfection, but for persistence, for showing us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, keep going. Her legacy isn't just in applause, but in survival made graceful, even when it was anything but. And anyone still fighting unseen battles, Catherine's story is a sign. You're not alone. Scars can shine. Silence can hold power. And grace, even in small moments, can change everything.